Hi Sonia, how are you?
Hey, Puneet, good to see you.
Finally, here we go.
Are you back? Are you still in London?
I'm in London, so uh, can you hear me clearly?
Pretty clear. Yeah, pretty clear.
Okay, and all right,
Can see
the
you clearly, can hear you clearly. I think we're good on that. Mm,
okay. Oh, we've got more people joining us. That's
yeah.
great. Trying to
Hi,
get,
everybody.
I'm
Hi.
trying to get my screen to be full, and I'm not. How do I do that?
No, so we'll just put you, once you're speaking, you will be on the speaker spotlight.
Okay.
Don't worry, yeah, like this. So when you speak up, so Zoom likes people who speak. It doesn't like people who doesn't speak. So
Oh,
when you
I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, so don't worry about me.
Awesome. I love the fan behind you. I haven't seen that in such a long time.
Now, you know what? There's a heat wave going on here in England right now. So everyone's got fans and people aren't used to
Not used to it. Yeah. Haven't seen that with this has got nostalgia, this fan.
it. Can you hear it? Is there a sound discrepancy? Can you hear the fan?
No, no, not at all. Not at
Is
all.
my sound clear?
Yeah, absolutely. Perfectly clear. I just saw it and I remembered it. Not
No.
seen it. How have you been?
I've been very good. So in
Busy?
that front, uh, more than I need to be.
Oh. It's a good problem to have, but it can also get tiring.
Yeah. Okay. So how much? We've got what, 7 minutes before we go on.
Yeah, yeah, before we go on.
All right. So do you want to give me a brief as to where you want to start and how you want to start this?
No, it's just our conversation, just like what we did our first conversation. Nothing,
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
nothing specific. But I think what's really special is to hear from your so much of an experience, because most of the people at Milhar who are listening to the conversations are mostly independent directors,
Okay.
so couple of years into working onto it. So, and everybody's trying to figure out things at their own level, right? And then the level varies for person to person. So I think, like I've been saying, what is really nice is that you share how you've been doing things, your processes, right? And I mean, what they don't teach you at the film school, as the title, as the film says,
Okay.
So yeah, we're just digging onto that itself.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I think I'll talk about it some more, but I think the
Hmm.
only thing that they really don't teach you in film school is uh, problem solving
Hmm.
with real life. They don't teach you distribution, marketing, selling your products, and most importantly, they don't teach you instinct. So instinct is the core of every filmmaker or storyteller, I guess.
Yeah. No, so we're gonna talk about all of that.
So where would you, are you going to throw a question at me and then I'll just take it from there? Is that
Yeah.
how it's?
Yeah, I mean, for me, just throwing the question is just to build some sort of a structure, but it's more or less around this topic that what they don't teach you at the film school, which means your interpretation of that,
Yeah.
so it's about how, in your experience of starting to where you are now, how you have taken the difference between theory and practical,
Okay.
right? So there are some things that we all as storytellers or filmmakers believe that this is how it's to be done, but in real life, when you start encountering, and the kind of array of things that you've done, from and I think things really change between national and international. The whole scale changes, the way people perceive the good, bad, ugly completely changes, you
Yeah.
know for somebody, for like you, to be relevant in India and to be relevant globally, that's what is value for us to hear from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we could just gonna have a conversation from there.
So are you the only person asking questions or the others are going to ask questions?
Everybody will join in. Everybody will join in. I am just going to start it off, and then I'm going to have coffee, and then everybody will
Lucky
have.
you.
Well,
I could do with a coffee right now.
I know, me too. No, just kidding. I am myself so glued into the conversation,
Okay.
and so because across the time zones, people who are not able to join in, once we give access to the recording, so they may want to get in touch if they have questions. So if you're open to them writing to you, then we could share that as a link, or
Sure.
or it could come to the festival, and then we channelize it, process it, and filter it as per how you prefer it, and it can be sent.
Whatever's easy for you. I'm
Whatever
getting.
works for you. Whatever
I'm,
works for you, really.
okay.
Yeah. So we'll
So who are these two lovely people I'm seeing on the side of my screen right now?
They have to introduce themselves. Lovely people, come on.
You have to unmic. There you
Yeah.
go.
I don't know who are those two lovely people.
You're one of them.
Okay. Fortunate enough. Hi, I'm Shuramo. I'm from Kolkata, India. And yeah, I'm really excited and looking forward to this masterclass and discussing things with you. I'm working as an independent filmmaker, and I have made my second film, like um, uh, uh, that I can like mention as a film, but I have made other narratives as well that I do not mention as films though. But yes, that's about me
Yeah.
for now. Yeah,
Nice.
I'll,
That's
I'll,
the way to do it.
yeah, I'll surely speak more
Okay.
once we get started. Yeah, definitely.
Hello. Hi, Puneet. Good afternoon. This is Shamej Kumar. I'm from India basically, but I'm living in Kuwait now.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
I'm
Are
an
you,
engineer.
are you guys all part of the film festival, or are you? Have you guys all helped organize this?
Yeah, I'm part of Malhar Festival. I'm a participant in the festival, um, and I'm basically an engineer by profession. And this is like a passion which I am following. And I did almost like 8 short movies, and I'm a theater director as well.
Very
I do
nice.
theaters, and some of my plays performed in Delhi as well, in Kamani. Yeah, that's my background. Yeah,
That's
and
very nice.
nice to be with you today. Yeah.
Nice to meet you too. Well done. Kuwait. I like Kuwait. Very nice.
Shamaz, I actually wanted to know, since we have, it's okay. What are you doing at Kuwait? What's your other work?
Okay. I'm an engineer with an oil sector, the Kuwait Oil Company, which is the national oil company,
Right.
and I'm a direct employee with them. I'm an instrumentation engineer. I do in the design in the instrumentation design section, working with the projects. So that's my profession, basically.
Okay.
Oil to camera, not bad.
It's out of office actually. Once I leave the office, I keep everything there, and this is the second part.
That's the way to do it. Super good. All right, so we are on time, and so there we go. So, everybody, please join me in welcoming Puneet Sira today. He's the founder of The Foundry. I always get intrigued when we say founder, the foundry. It's like so well designed, the name and the title.
It wasn't supposed to rhyme like that, but it just happened that way.
Wasn't? Oh, okay. So we're gonna get to that story, but it's very amusing. It just sounds like a perfect thing to say. Founder at the foundry.
Yeah.
Completes. Right. But that's not all. So Puneet has been in diverse fields, in diverse levels. So from being an actor to being director, producer, founder, and not just doing things like a project, but being really at the vision level of creating IPs, of thinking of futuristic formats, of what works for a larger audience. Like I was just casually talking about right now, that territories define a lot of ways in which we consume content. Our culture define a lot of ways in which we look at stories in a acceptable manner or an unacceptable manner. And Puneet is somebody who's working in India and globally in feature films and in television production, things like Channel V, which is for a certain mass of people, feature films, which is for a certain mass of people. And however simple it might seem, but to me, it's not, because one format, the understanding of one format cannot be copied pasted onto the other. So for you to unwind from one format, look at completely the other format to be a whole and complete thing, and to be successful in that, is a lot of variety, Puneet. So I am going to have you, talk to us about really what makes you make these choices. So many diverse choices, so many ways of. I mean, why would anybody do that? Just sit quietly and enjoy glory of something nice that you've done there. But to put yourself in so many shoes, you got to be thinking very differently. And can you just take us through that?
Wow. Thank you for a lovely introduction. That's so. I'm really excited and really happy to be here on this conversation. And I am going to answer your question because it's one of those questions that uh, is not the easiest one to answer, because there's a long journey in my life. And I guess it wasn't really intentional. When you're talking about jumping from formats to formats, it wasn't intentional, because since this topic is about things that you don't learn at film school, I think one of these jumping from formats is something that film school doesn't really cover. You either specialize in a certain field or you don't.
Right.
And I guess for me, it wasn't an intentional drive. It was an intentional goal that I'm going to try and do everything, and but it just kind of happened that way. So I jumped from, like you said, nonfiction to feature films to animation, to I even directed a live sports event. So it's I guess as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, you want to put your fingers in it. You want to try everything out. You want to see if that's something that suits you. Is that something that you're good at, or not? So that's really how it started. So for me, I think if I go back to how it all began, my father was an actor, and he used to run an acting school in the UK called the London Academy of Acting. When he started this, and I'm going back into the 70s, when he started this in his living room on weekends. So people would come to his living room, take acting classes from him. And as little children, I used to kind of peek through the crack of the door and see people, dying and crying and screaming and "Meri maa mar gayi," and all of this kind of stuff. And it was it was very confusing, but at the same time, it was really exciting. So what would happen was me and my brother would in the corridors of our home, we used to reenact all the things that we would hear and see. So we would scream and shout, and my mother would come and say, "Oh my God, what happened?" And we'd look very guilty. So my dad saw that, and he saw that, that why, instead of just listening in, why don't you come and sit in the class? Don't say anything, don't participate, just sit and watch. So I guess that was my first exposure to what actors do and what actors can be. And from there, that's where I started getting acting work. So my first job was a series for the BBC. This was me living in England at the time. You got to understand, I was born and bred here. And it was called The Velvet Glove with Rosemary Leach, Ben Kingsley before Gandhi. And that was my first exposure of walking onto a set where you're a participant in that set. And it blew my mind to see all these artificial rocks, the artificial mountains, the painted background of the skyline in the background. And that's something that really excited me. And that's when I realized this is something that I'm going to do forever. By the time I was 11, I was playing a lead role in a feature film called Arabian Adventure, which was being shot in Pinewood Studios. So again, and I've said this a lot, it was a real exciting playground for somebody my age. You've got Superman, the movie, being shot on one set, and you've got James Bond being shot on the other set. And, there's my movie in the middle. And, during lunchtimes, there's Roger Moore walking by, there's Superman walking by, and, you'd hang out. And it kind of really exposed me to this world of fantasy, of storytelling. But what I realized even at that age, that I was more intrigued by what the director was doing. Why is the director putting the camera there? Why is he moving it now? How's the special effects being done? Rather than concentrate on my performance. I was good in the film. I did my homework, but there was this huge fascination. And I think that's kind of where I was driven. So after the film was a huge success, I mean, you're working with amazing actors in this film, so you get great experience. You've got Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, Mickey Rooney, Emma Samms, Oliver Spices, huge stars of the 70s. So it was great working with them. And I guess to a certain degree, at that age, I wasn't familiar to their stature. I think, or I would have probably got intimidated by knowing who Mickey Rooney was, or who, I knew Christopher Lee was because he was Dracula. And I got the opportunity in the movie to kill him as the hero of the film. So my claim to fame at that age was I killed Dracula.
Not bad.
So it was, like I said, it was this great foundation for me to grow from. But as you grow older, and as with many child actors, children grow. So, this started to grow, my voice started to break, and this cute little kid was no longer this cute little kid. And you've got to understand, it's the British film industry. So unless now a 13, 14-year-old actor is trying to break into this industry, the hardest part was who's writing material for them. Is anyone writing a role for a 13, 14-year-old Indian boy set in the UK? And the chances are no, especially not during that era. So that kind of got frustrating, and I would have confrontations with my agent, who's also Sean Connery's agent at the time. And I said, look at the work that I've done, look at the work that we've done together, and, how come I'm not getting any more work? And her response was exactly what I just said. Unless somebody writes that, it's not going to happen. So I kind of got into a bit of a propaganda situation where I said, okay, if nobody else is writing, then I'll write. And from the acting school, we also opened up an agency, which was a talent management agency. And what we did was we specialized in ethnic minority actors, especially from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. It was called TIC. And what we were doing was we were training the actors at the acting school. And now, once they joined the agency, we were trying to get them work in the film industry. And so sometimes, again, the same thing happened. I would get this young guy a lead role in a feature film, and you'd expect that his career is going to, totally escalate. Post that, by then I'd quit acting myself anyway. But I realized that even after the accolades that he was getting from films, he's not getting more work, or she's not getting more work. And so again, back to the drawing board, what are we going to do about that? And that's really where I started writing. So it was always a motivation of what can I do to make things better? How can I fix this dilemma that we're facing in the industry, not just me personally?
Yeah.
And so that's when I started writing. And from the writing, it finally, I thought, okay, now with the writing, I want to direct, I want to make movies. And that's when I started applying to film schools. Coming back to the topic here, is what they don't teach you at film school. And at that time, you have to remember, filmmaking was very expensive. It wasn't something that we can do today, where you've got cameras on everyone's hands.
Right.
You literally had to go and beg, borrow, steal, film to make a reel so that you can have an application to go into film school. And what happened at the same time when I was applying to film school, I also got an offer at the BBC because of the writing to work as a trainee on their feature films department, the drama films department.
Nice.
So here was the thing: do I go to film school, learn the craft, or do I learn the craft hands-on, working on a movie set?
Right.
So I opted for the movie set. I thought, after film school, even if I graduated from film school, I would still end up being a trainee at
Somewhere
the BBC.
like this.
Yeah. So it was a big jump. It was a decision that had to be made, and I think it was the right decision for me, because I loved the whole experience of working on films. And what it did was it taught me a certain discipline that I don't think film school would have taught me. When you're working for a company like the BBC, within that department, they were making 22 feature films in a year, which is a lot. I'm not saying I was working on 22 feature films a year. But what it did was you jumped from one film to another film. And what it did was it exposed me to the discipline of filmmaking, because their machinery is so well oiled, it's almost unshakable. And I'll give you an example for that. Once you're directing for them, you have to make your shot list, you've gone to the locations, you've done your recce, you've worked with all your departments, you've discussed them in depth. And the person who runs the set in the West is usually your first AD. He's now given the shot list, he's given all the information, and he runs it like a well-oiled machine. So he knows what the first shot is as per the director's vision, what the second shot, etc. And on my first jaunt out there, even as a trainee, I was really excited. I really wanted to make a difference. I'm very passionate about telling stories. And so I'm there now behind the camera on this set, and the director decides that, you know what, this is a tripod shot. I'd actually like to lay a track here. And so he went to the first AD and goes, you know what, let's change the shot. Let's have a track that goes across the road, so when the car arrives, we can track with it. And the first AD said no. And I'm listening into this, and I was quite shocked, because he's the director, he's the captain of the ship, he can do whatever he wants, he's the storyteller. And the first AD said, no, sir, it's not on your shot list. We've got 17 shots to do today. If I put the track down, it's going to take another half an hour, which means either you remove the other 2 shots, that buys me that 15 minutes, or you should have done that beforehand. So this director couldn't take the shot that he wanted to take. So I was taken aback by that, because I didn't ever see somebody being able to say no to a director.
Right.
But that was the business, because not that this first AD was being rude or bad.
Sure.
He was doing his job. His job was from the BBC to make sure that this film is done on time, on budget, and delivered without going one shot or one day over schedule.
Right.
So when so I learned that. I learned the discipline of doing your homework in pre-production to the core, so that it's not it can't be shaken. And so I worked there for a few years, worked my way up from training to second AD. Then I started doing freelance work. I did a lot of work as a casting director on big films like Jinnah. for example. And then after doing Jinnah was shot in Pakistan. It was a British film with Shashi Kapoor and Christopher Lee again. And after this wonderful experience of working on Jinnah, I came to Bombay. And what I was also finding in the UK that, and I don't really want to go into this whole thing about racism, but it was very difficult for an Indian in the UK trying to do what they're doing. There's enough people already doing that. And so I found that, and I would hear this a lot if it was a story about arranged marriages or illegal immigrants or corner shop owners or racism, then that's the kind of stuff that, oh, that's something that we should talk to Puneet about, whether it was in casting or whether it was for ADing or, even script writing. But I wanted to do more. I wanted to tell greater stories, and I didn't think race had anything to do with it.
Right.
So after doing Jinnah and I came to India, I was fortunate enough to walk into a cinema and I saw this beautiful film called Virasat. And I loved it. I absolutely loved this movie. And I thought, wow, look at the escapism, look at the storytelling, look at the technique, look at the fun that the audience in the cinema is having. And it kind of made me think that, okay, maybe this is where I want to be. This is the biggest industry in the world, whereas the British film industry is quite a small industry, even though they do very big films, but they're usually American films that come to the UK to shoot. But this industry is alive, and I met with as many people as I could. And during that time, I was asked that, hey, since you're in town, there's this beach volleyball event for ESPN, the beach volleyball champions. Would you like to direct it since you're here? And now this was something that was totally out of my wheelhouse, because I've always come from feature films. So it's always been drama, scripted, very regimentated way of filmmaking. And I said, sure, why not? And I got to sit on this chair with these multicam setups and the buttons, and jump to screen 1, jump to screen 2, and do head bites with the contestants. So that was an absolutely new experience for me, but I took to it like fish to water. And I sat back and I thought, you know what, this is ESPN. If I was in England or if I was in any other country, would I have got this opportunity? So sometimes things happen to you that you don't expect, and you can either walk away from it or you can say, hey, let me give it a shot.
Awesome.
I could have screwed it up because I'd never done it before. But I made sure that there was good people around me who knew the systems, who knew the techniques, and it was then for me just to follow through with it.
Perfect.
And that's when I kind of also made the decision that, I'm going to leave England. I'm going to move to India. And that's what we did. I came back to England and packed up shop, packed up the acting school, the agency. And I said, you know what, I'm going where the sun shines. I'm not fond of the rain or the cold. But I'm going to go and tell stories. I'm going to tell wonderful stories. And so I shifted to India in 98. Been there, I should say, ever since. And, I started knocking on doors of people in the film industry, telling them what I've done, what I haven't done. I realized that when you're from abroad, or you're an outsider, or you haven't done, there are a lot of people in India who are very opportunistic. And they kind of feel that, okay, he's probably here on his summer holiday, 6 weeks later, he's going to go. So yeah, we'll have a cup of coffee with him, but we're not going to take him too seriously. And so at that point, I was offered, I realized that, what is it that I can do? And that's when I hooked up with Channel V. I met with people at the channel. And they said, hey, would you be, considering your background, would you be happy to run the channel? Because there's a position open. And I said, well, you know what? I'm more a storyteller. I'm more a filmmaker. You're asking me to run a corporate channel. And they said, yeah, but your skill set and the way, if you were to do it, how would you do it? And I kind of described my concept of how this channel should be run. So they offered me this wonderful job, and suddenly I was running Channel V.
Oh.
And I have to say, we were, I think, making about 25 shows a week, which you what I did was, my job was now to revamp the channel. The brand had already been made. Now, what can we do to compete with MTV? And so it was now more, which I really loved, more a creative journey rather than a producer's journey of, okay, let's think about marketing, which I did. I, was the first person to bring in marketing with the shows, got the teams together for sales and marketing. That freed up a lot more money. And now I would look at the scripts and I'd say, let's change this, let's get new VJs, et cetera, et cetera. So I did that for a few years and was very successful. And but then that storytelling, which everyone has, and I'm going to stick with Channel V for a while, because it's going to kind of come full circle. Because at that point we were holding auditions for new VJs and stuff, and I hired two lovely people to be VJs on the show. One was Vikina, who is now today the creator and chief at the Foundry, and Vikram. So these two lovely people were VJs on the channel, and we ended up becoming best friends after I left the channel, and we've literally been working together ever since. And so that was a good foundation to where I am now, because these two pillars have been running with me ever since. And so I left the channel. Again, I wanted to do storytelling. So Star said, listen, what you did for the channel, can you also do for Star TV? And I said, look, I need to be behind the camera. I need to say action cut. I need to work with actors and tell stories. So I decided to make shows for Star at the time. And they were more movies, movie of the week type, Star bestseller type shows. And then from there, the other channels got involved, and Vikram started producing stuff together. And at the same time, what we were doing was we were pushing more towards feature films. And that's where I got the opportunity to make my first feature film, which was a film called I Proud to Be an Indian. That in itself was a real experience, because I left England to come to India to make Hindi films. And this film was about racism back in the UK. So it was like, hey, okay, we're going back. So that's how movies really started for me. And it was a great experience, because even this is where I also discovered that Vikina was this incredible writer. And so she and I wrote the film together. And what she brought to the table was just fantastic. So literally after that film, I stopped writing, and I said, she's got a skill set that is far superior than I have. So I'm going to get her to do most of the writing from now on. And that's how movies started for me. So when you talk about jumping from one to the other, it's things that fall on your lap. Either you embrace it, take on that new experience, learn from it, see if you like it, or you just say, no, that's not for me, this is what I want to do, and have those blinkers on. The blinkers are a very strong part of filmmaking. I believe so.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what the format is, it doesn't matter what the structure is, as long as you're very clear what if you take on that mantle, that job, then you need to be 100% focused on it. You can't be thinking of, okay, I'm shooting this, but I'm also thinking about that at the same time. That lack of commitment, I feel, reflects on what you see on screen.
Sure.
So, I mean, I'm talking a lot, and I can continue talking. So if there's anything else you want to ask me, I would say the same thing. But if you continuing with what else that we do, it is very diverse. It's different formats. I even got this beautiful opportunity to do animation. So I did Virat Kohli's Super V, which I believe ended up being the most viewed animation show in the Indian market. So I'd never done animation before. And it was something that fascinated me. I love animation. I love watching animation. I love the storytelling of it. And again, it was wonderful because Vakina got to write the series. She brought this wonderful reality to this fantasy world, brought these characters to life. That always makes the director's job easy. And you
Yeah.
know, our job as storytellers is to do justice to the writing and convey that in a visual format. And so during all of this, what I felt by watching films, going to the cinema, looking at what's happening in the market, I always felt that there was always an element of storytelling that needs to be explored that we're not. It's there's a lot of formulas. If one film does well and it's a comedy horror, the entire industry is running after comedy horrors.
Right.
And that tends to happen a lot. And there was a lot of explored genres that hadn't been touched or tapped, the kind of stories that haven't been told. So those are things that are very hard to break the ice or get that door open in order to go out there and do this story. So Vakina, Vikram, and myself, we put the foundry together and said, okay, you know what? Since we're also in lockdown and we've got lots of time, let's start developing stories or films and stuff that we want to tell. And especially now with OTT arriving and how it's changed the platform. And that's really how the foundry started. We looked at the kind of stories that we wanted to tell and develop. And with regards to feature film, Vakina has developed over 90 feature films, not just for the Indian market, but for the Western market. As far as series are concerned, there's something like 60 plus series, animation, and obviously the podcast division. The podcasts are booming right now. And again, it's just another vehicle for us to tell great stories. So she's put together and developed these wonderful IPs. That's a hell of a lot of IPs. And I think we're the only company, the foundry in the world, that has and owns in-house so many IPs that have been developed.
Absolutely. Never heard anybody owning that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's all original. It's not adaptation.
Right.
We don't solicit writers' materials, or somebody's going, I've got a script, would you like to hear it? And say, well, no, we've got our own, thank you very much. So we're okay on that front. When I mean developed also, I mean, a lot of these are fully written, fully bound scripts, ready to go into pre-production. The shows, a lot of them have Bibles. Some of them have full bound treatments or synopsis. But one thing is sure across all these verticals is that they're developed to the point that the story is complete in all of them. Now, to a certain degree, you also have to be malleable, because when it comes to platforms or broadcasters or commissioners, they like an idea, they like a story, and then they say, but can we take it in a certain direction? Can we do this with a character? And, if it's okay with us, you need to have that flexibility, as long as it's really not taking away from the core idea or it's not compromising the product. So you need to keep that flexibility throughout. And so I think to a certain degree, we've got really good heads. Vakina does all the creatives. Vikram handles the business side of it and the production and the producing. Now he's gone on and made feature films himself as a director. So we all, and every feature film that I've made or every show that I've made has been written by Vakina. So we've got this really good, solid team. And more so than a team, we're a family, because Vakina is now my wife. And Vikram's my brother-in-law, and they are brother and sister. So it's a very hard core.
As good as it can get.
Yeah, so I think for us, the work never really stops, because when we leave the office, we go home, and what are you going to talk about? Normally you'd go home and talk about your day's work. So so our work really never stops. And, it could be in the middle of the night and say, I've got this great idea. And, you don't have to wait to go to the office in the morning to discuss it. So it's great stuff.
So beautiful. I mean, every time we hear people in the creators side, most usually people are alone, like they're the first in the family or the only in the family who are like thinking of stories, so not just they're alone, but the environment is also not so conducive, which I guess it's is so much more different for you. Your environment is exactly how you are. So
Yes, I was very fortunate. My parents also growing up wanted
yeah.
me to be in the creative field.
Wow.
Uh, so if I turned around to them and said I want to be an engineer and a doctor, they would have been gone, "What?" It would have been, it would have been a totally different ballgame.
I would say, considering the amount of artists that we speak to at Match My Talent, I would say this is a luxury that you have. I like
I do.
really,
I'm very, in that sense, I'm very privileged. I was
yeah,
pushed and I was guided very well from my childhood by my
beautiful.
parents. And and yeah, so it sounds. I don't want to sound. It was a privilege.
Yeah.
I find myself privileged.
No, not that it
People
takes away
have-
anything from your struggles, not to take away anything from every time you had to reinvent yourself. Of course, that's there. But I was just saying that that part itself, that there are people around you who relate to your creative identity
Thank
and to the whole journey, that itself is so beautiful because, when we talk to so many artists, because we are a community of 40,000 artists, and every time we speak to somebody, I seriously, like 90% of the people are just struggling for acceptance,
you. Yes.
just that much. So
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Okay, so I want to have all of you participate in this conversation. I think Puneet has so beautifully shared his entire life, right? And it is a completely different thing to hear a person speak it versus rereading it somewhere, right? He's here, right here in front of us and talking about it. So how many of you in the audience relate to this? How many of you think this is another story? It's a good story, very good story, but you can't imagine that this is the life a person is living. Which part of it do you relate to? I am sure we are all such similar people. That's what I believe, that somewhere we're all very similar people also. Which of these things are something that has happened to you also, or and you can connect absolutely well? Let's just hear it out.
I just want to add to that.
Yeah,
I mean, the
please.
way I make it sound, it sounds that it was really easy for me
No,
to get to where I did.
exactly. Yeah.
I haven't touched upon. Yes, I had a privilege in the sense of my parents were in a very creative field, so that was a good space. But the struggle, I think, isn't any different.
Yeah.
Finding work to break into the industry, uh, acceptance on a personal front is different, but the journey, whether whether you're supported or not supported,
Yeah.
is pretty much the same, because that
Sure.
will always boil down to you as an individual, and it will
Mm.
boil down to you and your knowledge of your craft. So
100%. In fact, I think it could have been even more, because when you're not accepted, then you're in a not accepted space. Like that's this that that okay, you're gonna have it tough, But when I was hearing it, for you to decide to leave your roots from Britain and be here, that it's even if you have Indian blood, how does it matter? But you don't have that network. You are a new person coming completely at a solo level.
it was actually, it was a lot harder than the move wasn't hard.
Mm.
The move was buy a ticket and jump on a plane. Uh, but the struggle, I found that I was in England. I like I said, I felt like a bit of an outsider because I grew up in India. I went to boarding school in Panchkuni, but when I came back to India, I also felt like an outsider because I had an accent. And so for me to break into the Hindi film industry, the Indian film industry was even harder,
Mm.
um, because I didn't belong. I was the outside. Do you understand? Whereas
Yeah,
there's people that
yeah,
have been born, bred here,
yeah.
and they've been working all their lives in this industry or trying to break in. Uh, they didn't have an accent.
Mm.
And I guess the biggest fear from a lot of filmmakers when I initially arrived was that, you know what, he's got the talent, he says all the right things, but what if halfway during the shoot there's an altercation and he says, you know what, I've had enough. He can jump on a plane and go back to England.
Mm.
What would happen to the producer's money? What would happen to the investor's money? What would happen to the product? We would not. Uh, so there was this lack of security that
Mm.
people found in me.
Mm.
Um, just like hundreds and hundreds of people that arrive from England, from Canada. They come in the summer holidays. They want to be actors. They want to do this. They come, they enjoy themselves, and after their holidays are done, they go back.
Yeah.
And that's been the rut. And I guess people were expecting the same from me. So people were excited about what I was offering, but nobody was taking that chance. Nobody was taking that gamble. And it wasn't until you meet them again a few years later and they say, oh, you're here. Are you here on holiday? I go, no, I never left. That you started to build a sense of security for people, for them to totally understand that he's here to stay. He's not here on a try. He's not here for a hobby, or maybe it will happen. He's here because he's got a focus and a sense of conviction that he wants to follow through with, and that's really how it happened to me.
I think what I take from that is, if you're just consistent at what you do, even if it sounds minimal, even if it sounds like so trivial in the whole scheme of life,
Larger
but if
things.
you're just consistent, for people to have faith on us, it is also important to be at it,
Yeah.
not
But
to
you
give
gotta
up.
remember, from the producer side, they've got to raise the money. It's their money.
Yeah.
So they're taking a gamble on you. So you're there to actually fulfill what their need is at that time, even as a director.
Yeah.
And if they feel insecure about that, then that's not
Yeah,
they
it's
they won't
useless.
take that risk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, no, no, Praneeth, I nowhere would I ever feel that it could have been easy. I'm absolutely palpitating to the space that you could have been, you must have been. Like, I mean, just to be sort of cornered because you have an accent, even though you belong to the soil. And what do, you can't change that overnight. It's not something that goes
Still have
happen.
an accent.
Yeah, you still have an accent. So, I mean, you can't just pull the thing off and just keep it away to say, okay, can you accept me now? No, you can't. It's so much of part of you. And to work around with that, I think you, if we go in detail, there would be things about each aspect of you that you worked upon. Just like literally.
Absolutely. It was it was a lot of hard work, and luck has a lot to do with it. I'll talk about that
Yeah,
more, because then I can tell you how I really got my first break, and
absolutely.
how much luck was involved, being in the right place at the right time, or just making a very good impression. All of these things.
Yeah, no, that's what I want to
Very,
get to. My
very big.
next question to you is that what was by design and what was accidental? I would want to get to it, but I just want to quickly check with our audience that is there a question, guys? Is there something that you want to know from Puneet already, or you want to share something that you want to, because it's been a beautiful sharing, and if there's something coming to your mind right now, come on, come out with that.
Bring it on.
Bring it on. It's for each one. Suramo, I know.
Yes, I do have a question, and it's related to the process of how you direct. And so I wanted to know, like, you also being as an actor, uh, when you direct other actors, do you have that that kind of like fight like in inside of you, where you tend to act them out, the scenes, but you don't then, like, is there a tussle between like within yourself, that you are willing to kind of act when the actors are not getting what the scene is, or what the emotion is, or they are not being able to portray it properly? Do you get find it difficult to like not perform the scene yourself, or do you just perform it and let them know that this is exactly what you want?
Okay. Two things. There are there's a reason why you cast people for what they cast. I have a totally different philosophy. I prefer my best not to act out for the actors. What I believe that each actor contributes something to a character, My job is to guide them, brief them as to the backstory of these characters and give them as much character information as possible. I even get Gina involved in that because as a writer, there's a thought process that she shares with the actors too. So the more information you can give to the actor, the better it is. And then I love to give them the freedom to bring out their own personality in the performance. I believe in unique performance. I believe in believability. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for honesty. I'm looking for believability. And what I always tell when I used to also teach at acting school, this is one of the things that I used to always tell, is that everyone is an individual. Everyone is unique. You can give one scene to one actor, he'll do it a certain way. You'll give the same scene to another actor. The emotional content of the scene is the same, but the other actor will still give you a different performance. So why is that? If I'm going to act it out for them, then I don't really need the actors. I need puppets. Move left, move right. Those are kind of blockings that you can bring in later on. But what I always say to my actors is that you have imagine yourself. Today you are a well-to-do actor in the film industry, etc., etc. But this character that you're playing is a gangster, which is something that you have no exposure to. You've never lifted a gun in your life, nor have you slapped anyone. But you're this beat man who's really into money. Imagine that you, as an individual, because there is only one you, lived your life, but somehow, if your life changed, you didn't become an actor, but you ended up where this gangster was. How would you be? No, don't try and impersonate the gangster. How would you, as an individual, today you're an actor, but if you ended up where he was, you would still be you, right? So therefore, you would still bring a lot of your uniqueness, your idiosyncrasies, your personality, the same things that make you laugh, the same things that make you cry, that you bring to that character. So what you do is you're adding now yourself onto a character had you ended up in his position. So what happens is that now you put the camera on them, they will give you a unique performance. A performance that's unique to them and their personality. And therefore it's faultless. It can't be compared. When you hear this thing about, oh, you know what, I can't see anyone else play that role because of the way he or she did it, it's because they brought themselves a part of them. And I allow that to that. And I say that with the greats. If you look at Mr. Bachchan, he's the same in every film, but his characters are so diverse. And he's 100% committed to those characters. So whether it's the angry young man or the grieving father or the romantic lead, you always see a part of Mr. Bachchan coming through in that character. And that's what makes him so unique. You look at De Niro, Pacino, they're very similar in every film. The acting styles are the same because they are being themselves, as long as if they were now in a position of what the character was. How would I be if I was weak? How would I be if I was strong? Rather than how would the character be? And I think that's the biggest difference. You have to allow that freedom to get characters coming to life on that screen. Now, sometimes you don't have that luxury. Sometimes you end up with an actor, poor casting choice, you can't change them, and they are not as good as that, and they can't contribute. So I'm answering your question. So there's two things I do. The first choice is let them be like I just explained. Second choice would be don't push them as actors. What happens is that you want 100% performance. This is my scene, it's a dramatic scene, it's an emotional scene, and I want to push my actor to that 100% mark because as a director, that's what I want. I want that 100, I want him to hit that pinnacle, I want her to hit that pinnacle. And what happens is they can't. And if the minute they start hitting that 100% mark, they're hamming, they're overacting, and it's a bad performance. But I still want them to hit that 100% mark. So, but I don't want a bad performance. So what you do is you see the capacity of the actor. Now, my 100% might be their 75% as far as performance is concerned. That's the best they can do without it going into overacting. So I will never let them cross that 70% mark, because for them, it's their 100%. Okay, which means for them, that's their honest performance. That's what they can give. If I push them any further, I'll get what I want, but I'll get an actor who's overacting in my film, which will, in the end, make me look bad. Because so don't push your actors beyond their limits if you know what their limits are, and therefore you still get that very distinct, honest performance from them. And therefore they might be bad in another movie, but they'll, in your movie, they'll say, you know what, he was very good in that. It's because I didn't push them too far. Coming back to your question, only in desperation would I get up and I would perform for them. But I wouldn't perform wholeheartedly. I would perform to a certain degree where they might get a hint of where I want them to go. Like I said, if I was going to perform every character for people, then I don't need actors. I would just take people from acting schools and say, hey, be my puppets. I don't like that. I like genuine actors who bring and contribute to a role in a character. And I would strongly recommend every director do so.
But Puneet, what do you do about the gap in that case? Like if you got 75% out of that actor, which the actors was 100%, but that gap means a lot to your film, to your vision as a director.
It does to a certain degree. If I'm sad, I can go and cry it out, or I can go. It doesn't affect my story as long as the character is committed to that moment and my viewer is committed. The commitment and the link between the viewer and the screen breaks when you suddenly see the performance, you suddenly see the overacting. And I would rather not have bad acting in my film and have something that has told my story to the best of that ability. And people don't know what happens behind the camera. They will only see what the end product is, whether it's good or bad. Sometimes I look at stuff that I've shot and I go, oh God, that was such a terrible day of shoot, but it's in the movie. And I'm not there to tell the audience that, you know what, it wasn't my fault or wasn't their fault because, you know, it was raining. We only had 15 minutes to shoot this. Because when you watch a movie, you don't care about that. You want to be immersed in that world. So there's no place to apologize to the audience. You just have to give them the best you can. And if that's the best the actor can give you, then go for the best. Don't go for a version that you want, but is no longer the best. So you've compromised by pushing him that 100%. You've compromised your product. But don't compromise your product.
Right.
Very, very, very unique aspect. Beautiful. So,
Yes.
Puneet, there's a comment for you from Vimla. She's saying, "Good to see and hear Puneet's story after I heard his name when I joined Channel V."
Okay. Who is this?
Vimla.
Hi, Vimla. How are you?
She is. Her connection. She's still there. Yeah. Okay. Her connection.
She's not the right name.
She's not there right now, no? She
No.
her connection
Yeah.
is usually very. She just keeps coming and going. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'll let you know when she's back.
Did she have a question?
No. She was just saying that it was very nice. I think goes back to the Channel V days. So she's heard you for the first time, probably like your story,
Wow.
but knows you from Channel V.
Wow.
So it's like,
Been a long time.
yeah, that's what she's reacting to. Okay, all right. So jumping on to the crux, and now we're gonna go deep into Puneet's mind and his strategies and his process. So
Okay.
Puneet, what is it that they don't teach us at the film school about distribution?
Oh, distribution. I think I'll focus more on the creatives.
Okay.
Distribution is obviously it's a different business. It's a different ballgame. I
Sure.
think I would say, and I would summarize it. I mean, like I said, I worked my way up, working on film sets, working with great directors, working with great DOPs, and figuring out what film does, what film doesn't do, what a lens does, what a lens doesn't do. All of these things play a big part. And then I'll tell you how I learned. I'm not saying that traineeship at the BBC didn't teach me anything, but when I first got that camera and I first made that film, I think that's something that will help a lot of people, and I think will resonate with a lot of people.
Sure.
Is that I got a bunch of people together that I'd worked with, and I said, you know what, I've got a 16mm camera, let's go out, let's make a movie, and we put this team together. So all the things that I had seen on the set, you're trying to emulate and replicate. So we went out and we shot this beautiful movie, this fantasy 10-minute short film, but on films now. And while we were shooting, I loved every aspect of it. It was working really well with the actors, and every frame, every shot looked like it was $1 million. And I think it was 18, 19 at the time. And I thought, you know, Steven Spielberg, here I come, you know, that's the kind of shot that Steven Spielberg would do. That's the kind of stuff Scorsese. So every frame looked beautiful. Every shot moved beautifully. But when it came to post, and I was cutting the film together, I realized that it's jarring. It doesn't have the same fluidity. Each shot looks great, but when you're putting the pieces together, whether it's this way or that way, it doesn't have the same emotional connect. It doesn't have the same emotional impact. And I'm thinking, well, you know, when he does it, when their films, you don't actually even see the edits. You don't even see the cuts because it flows so beautifully. Why is it that every time I cut, I feel like there's a jump, there's a jar? And so what I started doing was, at that point, was understanding the edit pattern, understanding what cuts together, what cuts well with something, what doesn't cut with something. If I cut from here to here, will it jar? Yes, it does. If I cut from the same angle from mid to close, it jar. All of those things. So it was kind of self-taught. So I used to take stock footage from other people's films and try and cut these scenes together until it felt smooth. It felt like, you know, the scene has come to life, and we're progressing and manipulating the way I want the viewer to feel in the scene. So that is really, really helpful for any filmmaker or director, because now when I'm on set and I'm shooting, I've already got my edit pattern or a rough edit pattern in place. And I know that, okay, from this shot, I can cut to what I want to do next, as opposed to it's not going to cut, which was the problem I had when I first. So I started literally learning the hard way, hands-on, making mistakes. And today, I think a lot of people are really, really fortunate because they have access to cameras, get free edit software on your laptop, and just keep making movies, see what works, what doesn't work. And you know, like I said, even today, after all of these years, there's a part of me that still says, you know, if I'd gone to film school, is there something I missed? Mm-hmm. Even though I've gone through the gambit, I'm hands-on with pre-writing, shooting, with the art department, to post, to sound, to background music. I put my hands in everything, get involved. Because it's my vision at the end of the day that's trying to be emulated. Yeah. But there's always a part of me saying that if I'd gone to film school, would there have been something else? Now, from what I hear from film school is they'll teach you all the technical aspects of filmmaking, what a camera does, what a camera's lens does. If you use this lens, you can feel a certain way. If you use that lens, this is what you can do. A camera, what's the significance of a camera move, etc., etc. But what they can't teach you is instinct. Now, that otherwise everyone that would come out of film school would be a great filmmaker. So I guess that's the biggest difference from film school and stuff. But what film school does is it gives you an opportunity to learn by watching other people's films, discussing it with people of similar interests. They're all interested in doing what you want to do. So suddenly you've got a community that is all speaking the same language and all have the same goal, to tell great stories, to make good films. So when you're pushing that, when you're in that environment, you can't help but be creative. But the downside of film school is that when you graduate from film school, it usually happens, and I don't know whether it happens today or where it used to happen back in the day when I used to lecture at film schools. What I found was that they would all work on a certain project, and this would be the graduation project.
Yeah.
Now, only one person from the writing team is going to get that script approved. So the rest of the writers in that writing team are now an assistant director or handling locations. You're only going to get one DOP for that graduation film. You're only going to get one director for that. So you may have come and say, I want to direct, but you might literally be the head of feature. On that shoot to get, and that's your graduation film. I mean, it's not that they're only making one graduation, but one team is making one film. Each team is making a different film. So sometimes you may come in to say, yeah, I want to be a cinematographer. I want to be a DOP, or I want to be a director, or I want to be a writer. That might not necessarily, after 3 years of film school, what you walk out with as your reel. So that's where I would say.
So about the instinct that you say, Puneet, how did you test your instincts?
Instincts, everyone's an individual. Everyone has their own story to tell, and they want to tell it their way. I think because I came from an acting background, came from a creative background, it helped me work with actors. So instinctively, you know what is going to work, what isn't going to work. When I cut this together, because you've already pre-edited your film in your mind, you know that when I come in for that close-up, that's going to be overacting, or I want to frame like that because I want the camera to move slowly.
So it's about practice then.
It's about trial and error. Watch as many movies as you can. Watch them in mute, and learn from the edit patterns. And I'll give you a great example of what instinct is, and it's purely, like I said, trial and practice, and something that you inherently have. You have a movie, not my movie, when you're watching a movie, and you have a very similar scene in two very separate movies. A mother and a daughter having an argument, and it's emotional that the daughter says, I hate you, mom, and walks out the room. Okay, now we've seen that scene in 100 movies. Right. It's happened in English films, it's happened in Italian films, Hindi films. It's a very dramatic moment.
Yeah.
Now, in one movie, that same scene hits your heart, and you really feel for the daughter, and you really feel for the mom, and it's emotionally connected with you, and you go, wow. And yet a similar scene in a totally different movie, you watch it and you go, okay, she's gone, you know, and it didn't connect with you, it didn't resonate with you. So why is that? They were similar, they had the similar kind of block shots, but why did this work and why didn't this work? And that's really where your instinct comes in. It's the build up to that moment, how the director's told that story. Has he pushed, has he worked with the dialogue, the writers to say that, you know what, let's not do exposition, let's try and bring this around another way. So there's so many different aspects to create a similar moment, but it can have a totally different impact. And that's really where the director comes into play, to kind of really mold that into the shape that he wants to do. And instinct is also what you want to, what's your stamp on that? What's the story that you want to tell? How do you want to tell that story? I meet a lot of creative people who'd say, you know, this is what the audience wants. And if we do a scene like this, the audience will love it. And I'm actually not from that school of thought. I always say that if I like it, there has to be a million people like me. If I like something, then that means there's other people also like it. I can't be so unique that I'm the only person on this planet who likes this.
So you have to find your tribe.
Yeah, you have to say that this is a story I believe in. This is how I want to present my story. That works for me. I'm not doing it for an audience. I'm doing it. The audience will, if I'm respond to it, if I
It's a
connect with
very, very beautiful. That's an amazing point, Puneet. You're
and I'm
saying,
hoping that a million people will too.
yeah, Puneet, what you're saying is that when you tell a true story, when you tell a story that you want to tell, one thing that one could go wrong is in anticipating its right audience. So you might have another audience as your wish audience, as your wishful audience, and you might have a story which is actually for another audience. And
Yeah.
that also is a gap worth looking into, that if this is your story,
I'm
what could be the audience?
please, please don't get me wrong. I'm not, I mean, the film industry is a business. I'm not talking about niche. I'm not saying I want to make
Yeah,
some,
no,
oh,
sure.
itna hatke ke nobody even gets it, but it felt good to me. I'm
Right.
not saying that. It's a business. It is a commercial business, and you have to strive for that. If you don't have success in what you're doing, you're not going to get another job.
Yeah.
You can sit at home and watch that film with your friends and say, "I made that niche little film." You have to understand the dynamics of the entire film industry to be part of it. You can't just be an outlier.
Yeah.
It can be an outlier in storytelling. It can be an outlier in how you want to present that story. And I don't mean let's just, shoot it low angle so we're only looking at people's nostrils. Not for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Look at what stories work, how they put together, but put your stamp on it. Put something on that if you were uh, surfing through television and one of your films came on, or a director's film came on, you can recognize it just by looking at one frame and say, "Oh, that's Martin Scorsese's movie, or
Right.
that's a Coppola movie."
That's an identity.
That's an identity. It's the way he's presented it.
Yeah.
Every director will present their script in a different way. Always put your stamp on it. Do it the way you want to do it, because you feel that is the best choice out of
Right.
all the options. Should I go for a mid shot? Should I go close up? Should it be a trolley? Should it be a wide? Should it be two people in the frame? Should it be a solo frame? Choose the best choice that you believe as an individual
Yeah.
that is going to propel that moment in that story, even if it's only there for 1 second. It
Yeah.
might be a cutaway. Is that the best cutaway for my story?
So develop your own style.
Develop your
And
own
develop
style.
your own style, stick to it, be confident about it, that okay, this is a style that I stand for, and be
Learn.
consistent.
There's an old saying that people have come before you, they've made films. I watch a lot of films and I see what they did and why it made me feel that way. And I take from that. I'm not saying I'm copying a scene. I'm
Yeah.
talking about what was their technical graph that they used in order to get an emotional high,
Right.
to connect with me.
Yeah.
Was it a look that he made the actor do? Was it, so you take from that, and then when you're doing your own film, you want to try and push it a bit further. So that's what they did. That worked from there. I learned a lot from that. Now I'm going to take the bits that I learned, but I want to add this to this. I want to try and do it this way because I think I could better it. Okay.
Or I have a take on it. I have a different way to
Have a
look at
take
it.
on it. You have to, as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, you have to believe that you're the best at what you do.
What you do.
If you don't, there will always be a part of you that will be saying, "Oh, what if I get caught? Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am." Have that belief. There is only one you. There's only one way you can tell the story. Nobody else can tell the story the way you will. So believe in yourself, trust in yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to learn everyone's jobs. You have to understand everyone's jobs so that you can have a cohesive conversation with your art directors and your DOP on lighting patterns and your costume designers. You look at costumes, you're not going to sit there and sew a costume. That's their job. We'll design it, but it's for you to approve. So understand what everyone does, because filmmaking is not a solo quest.
Yeah.
It is a team effort, and surround yourself with people who are so damn good or better than you that you can also take from them. That's what I would say to all the filmmakers today.
That's
Just
beautiful.
keep making films, and if it doesn't work, try it again. Why didn't it work? And keep making it. Keep telling
And
those
keep looking for yourself within that, for your own individuality, for your own intent, for the way you want to tell a story. And as soon as that starts to reflect in a couple of them, and you can stand by that, there is something that you're developing, and then find an audience for that. There has to be a particular audience, a type of audience that relates to your work.
And I think that's what we're doing at the Foundry right now. I think Vikram's out there raising huge amounts of money to make the kind of shows that we want, the films that we want to make. Because you do, when you're in, you have to know who you're making the film for. And I'm not talking about an audience here. Sometimes you make a short film, you go and give it to a producer, and you tell that producer, I have this great story, I want to make it into a film. The producer might say, hey, you know what, I liked your short film, but I'm actually making something like this and I'm looking for somebody like you. So you're making somebody else's product for them. And they might have their own agenda. Your job is to tell that story the best way you can, but you can't ignore their agenda, because that's why they hired you. But there will come a point in your life where you're going to say, you know, I want to now do something that's for me. Not on a selfish level, because that's something that you want to send out there. You want the world to look at and say, you know, that's what they did. And that's really why, one of the core reasons why the Foundry was also set up, because not only are we looking at what's in the market that needs to be plugged into the market, but it's also these wonderful, wonderful stories that we want to tell, that we want to send out there into the world, and for people to look back and say, wow, you know, that's great. We hadn't seen that before. Again, Squid Game is a great example. It did all the rounds. It was very different. Nobody done something like that before. But then one person said, hey, let's make that. 12 years later, and you have Squid Game. Now everyone's going, hey, what's the next Squid Games? So always have, I think, as storytellers, as creators, always have something that you want to share. You might not get to do that today, you might not get to do that tomorrow, but eventually when the day comes where you can make it, you'll feel very good.
Brilliant. So guys, sorry, I don't want to keep Puneet going here beyond the time that I've requested him for, but definitely can't let him go without your questions. So let's just bring in maybe the top 2-3 questions. Anybody wants to run anything by him, the stage is all yours. Unmute and go ahead.
Hi, Puneet.
Hi.
This is Upashna. I'm from Bhutan. It's not a question, just a discussion. So
Okay.
with me, what happens is I get so stuck with one movie, you know, I can't move on, because suppose if it does not go to the festival, I try to tweak a little bit, and then I feel, oh, maybe this will work and that will work. But people, my friends tell me that forget that movie and move on. So what do you have to say for that?
Okay, well, first and foremost, hi. But I have a question for you. How long have you been working on this movie?
6 months.
Okay.
It's a short movie.
How long? 10 minutes, 5 minutes? What is it?
12 minutes.
12 minutes. 6 months to commit to a movie is not a long time. What is it that you keep coming back to? Is it something that you feel something wrong with the film, or you're just not getting the traction for the movie? What is it that what's preventing you from letting go?
Every time I've made just 3 short movies. So every time I make something, I learn something. So it's very difficult to move on to my next short movie, because somebody says something and I think that, you know, maybe I can tweak a little bit and it'll be better. But sometimes, you know, I'm in my own thoughts that why am I listening to so many people? I should do what I'm supposed to do. So that happens with me most of the time. So I don't know how to move on, or should I go back and work on my edit again, or, you know, that's the problem which I'm facing right now.
This is something that I've heard said, and I also preach it, is that you will always get opinions. Okay, I'm assuming you directed this.
Yes.
This movie, right?
Yes.
You will always get opinions. And it's for you to take and throw away what you want. Okay. And I gave this example in a podcast that I did quite recently. Just when you're on that set, yes, you're talking to your DOP, you're talking to your art directors, you're talking with your actors, you're talking with your grips department as to what the shot is. But always remember, it is a group effort while you're making the film. But at the end of the day, it's one vision, which is your vision. Okay, that vision is never going to be taken away from you. So understand this, when you sit in that director's chair and everyone's worked for months to get to do this one particular shot, and you say action, okay, up to that point, everyone's been working for you. But once you say cut, you will realize that every department on that set, be it the actors, will turn around, they'll look at you. Your DOP will move away from his camera and will look at you. Your art director will look at you. Your grips department will look at you, because everyone is working for your vision. At that point, you are making the film for you and they are working for you. It's up to you to say, yes, that's a good take. Let's move on. Or you'll say, no, I didn't like this. Let's try again. So even though when you say collaborative, listening to people, at the end of the day, it is all about one focus. It's one vision. When you say action, you say cut, everyone is working for your vision. You're not working for theirs. You're not going to say to the cameraman, did you like, are you happy with that? It's what you are happy with. So when you show the film to people, yes, it's good to take feedback, but if it doesn't apply to how you saw that film, that feedback has no value. But sometimes somebody will say something that makes sense to you, and you'll say, well, I didn't think of it that way. An editor might cut the film slightly differently than you thought, but he enhanced it, and you like it. It's for you to say yes or no. So to fix your problem, one, you have to evaluate your own film from your perspective. Take the feedback that you like, don't take the feedback that you don't like if it doesn't fit your thing. And then, yeah, if you think if I recut it, I can make it better, then recut it. If not, then move on. Otherwise, 6 months can become a year can become 2 years. All right, learn from this. If you think it didn't work, people didn't connect to it, ask yourself why. Learn from that, and then move on.
All right.
Awesome. Super good. So, guys, that will bring us to a very, very informative end of this session. Okay, Surma. Okay.
Yeah.
I just hope, because we have the next guest waiting. So let's just
Yes.
honor that and Puneet's time. Yeah. And you can always write to Puneet later also, but if you have something very specific, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's very specific. It's about Foundry. I wanted to know what Foundry does. Like, do you people take independent filmmakers on board as well to work with you?
Yes, we do. Foundry is an IP content development studio. Like I said earlier on, what we've done is we've developed a huge amount of content, huge amount of IP ready to push into the market.
Right.
Our website will also be coming out very shortly, so the industry can start looking and picking and choosing what they want to make. Yes, as the Foundry, yes, we do hire directors, we do hire technicians, people in production. Obviously, once you've got productions on the floor, we will be hiring a lot of people. But obviously, we're looking for people depending on what the projects are and how long they're going to last, whether it's full-time or whether it's project-based. So
Right.
yeah, yes, that
And
is,
there and Foundry is, I mean, they're pretty approachable. You can write to them with specific things. I'm
Yes.
sure it's very subjective.
Yes.
They're open to it, but you can reach out to them specifically at the point when you're ready for
I
it.
mean,
And then,
right now we've just uh, when we start our next project, obviously we will be hiring more people for that. So what happens is you get one project in, you're making that project, you bring a team for that, and that project then moves on. Same time another project starts, another team will be hired. I said it all depends. It depends on what is needed at the time. So you crew as per that need.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. So
Actually, you have
stay
the
tuned.
person to talk to if anyone's going to write is Vikram, because he's kind of the hats of the company. He runs the entire business end of it, and he's got so much responsibility on his shoulder, and he does it so phenomenally well. I'm very proud of him.
I'm
So
sure
he's
we'll
also the
cross
co-founder of
paths.
the company. Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm sure we're going to cross paths with Vikram also one day, and it's going to be more and more experience coming in. So
absolutely.
perfect. I
You
just
were talking about the distribution and the business aspect of it.
yeah
He's somebody,
there yeah
he's somebody you should definitely talk to, and I'm
sure
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 he
sure
has a
we'll
lot of
speak.
insight to share.
Yeah, we'll speak with Vikram and bring in his insights. So before we close, Puneet, Shamez has written to you saying thanks a lot, Puneet, for sharing a wonderful, valuable experience with us. So informative. And Eric said cheers from Mexico.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mexico. Hello. Okay, great.
Awesome. So thank you, Puneet. The conversations are going to go on. Once somebody comes in touch with Matchma Talent and Malhar, it's a never-ending process. This is not the only time we are chatting. We are going to keep on interacting, and I'm sure there is so much more to learn because of the variety of things that you do. So we'll invite you over again for another conversation, another deep digging into your insights.
Absolutely.
But
You're
for
more
now,
than welcome. I loved the experience, so thank you much for it. And I hope people have taken things from but yeah, feel free.
no,
Let's stay
I'm
in touch,
sure
and
they are.
I'm more than happy to do this again.
Awesome. And you have to do one more thing on request. You have to go watch their films. So
I have
you
to
have
watch
to
the
go and watch their films. There are lots of films. So whenever you find time, please watch whatever you feel like and drop in your feedbacks and comments. They'll be like very useful for everybody. I know Siroma is going to pitch in his film. Go ahead.
I'll
What?
watch it.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Give the name.
I did.
The river.
The
Okay, I
river.
will. Okay.
Okay. Anybody who wants to pitch in your film to Puneet, put in the name there. It makes it easy. But otherwise, on the festival site, you could just look from the name point of view. Yeah. So
Okay.
there's Ode to Farewell, there's Kameez, there is the river. You
And this
know,
pressure cooker.
pressure
Vishal
cooker.
Cooker.
Yeah. So these you have to watch because the people have gone way ahead the others and now requested, and others whatever you can watch and
All right.
drop in your comments. All right.
Thank you very much for everyone's time. And I hope to see you all soon.
Thank you,
Yes.
Puneet.
Thank you
Thank you.
so
Thank you for
much.
your time. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye bye. Great. All right, guys, we're gonna hop into the next session in 13 minutes from now, and I am sure that you haven't spoken to that gentleman because I haven't ever spoken to that gentleman, but he is obliged to come for the Malhar Film Festival. He is the CEO of the Producers Guild of India. Whoa! How more deeper it can get. So he is the person and the organization who decides what the producers of the country do. And producers of the country are what everybody chases, right? So what happens? What are the revenue streams coming up? What's new changing in the producing field? What are the preferences? There's so much that he's going to talk about. So don't be late. I'll see you again in the next show. All right. And if you have a producer friend, get them to ask the right questions or take their questions. Right? All right. Take care. Bye bye.